When was the last time you read the footprints prayer? When was the last time you felt like it was only your footprints left in the sand? My name is Vanessa, and I'd like to share my story with you. I remember being about 5 years old. I was sleeping on my grandparents' couch. I had my underwear on, I had a little tank top on, and I also remember a man standing above me, and I still remember this dark figure standing above the couch above me, and the hallway light was behind him. And I remember him touching me, and I remember wanting to like scream, to run, to get out of there, but my body was frozen in fear. And I was so confused and I was so scared. And the sad thing is this wasn't the only perpetrator. I was perpetrated by two men, and they weren't blood relatives, but they weren't stranger danger either. These men were nice, funny, helpful. Nobody ever would have suspected that they were child perpetrators. My grandparents, I'm sure they thought that their home was safe for their children and grandchildren, but it wasn't. Not for me. And I don't know who else they perpetrated on, but I know that I wasn't safe and I was violated. And I had to do a lot of forgiving because I ended up went into bed because of this. And it was because of that terror. Like, who's going to come creeping through that front door, you know? And are they going to, violate me? And so I had to forgive. My family would, some of my family members would tease me and taunt me and bully me and make fun of me. And my life in that sense at home was horrible because I had this secret going on and nobody to talk to, nobody to whatever. And the thing is if my family knew that wetting the bed was a possible sign of child sexual abuse, maybe they would have asked questions. Maybe they would have sat me down and had a conversation with me. But they didn't know that, wetting the bed was a possible red flag. And so it continued and whatever. So I had to forgive them because they didn't know better. I also had to forgive my perpetrators because I think that they were too victims of child sexual abuse when they were young boys. And they were just continuing the ugly cycle and didn't get healing and help, right? Um, but that was my life at home. And that created already abandonment issues. Because nobody, like, betrayal, right? These men, adults, are supposed to protect children, and these men were perpetrating, they were violating. And so, yeah, already I had these, and the abandonment issues and the lack of, or the feeling unwanted, feeling unloved came from my parents not taking care of me. And I know my parents loved me then just as they love me now. But I remember being mad and angry because if my mom or my dad took care of me, this wouldn't have been happening to me. So I carried a lot of that, and I didn't trust adults, and I definitely didn't trust men. So I still struggle with a lot of those issues today. I'll be honest. I ain't perfect, and you know, yeah. So that those I still have to go back and start doing a lot of work because it's ongoing for me. And then when I was 12 years old, I was diagnosed with a rare eye disease, and this eye disease had no cure. Yeah, my luck was just not getting better, right? So this eye disease, I think, was a tipping point, and that's when I had enough. And that's when, and the thing is I knew there was a God. So there was no, oh, there is no God, right? To me, it was, why do you hate me so much? Why are you punishing me? That is where I was at. So after all of that, I wanted nothing to do with God because He was making my life hell. After I I started doing I I started doing drugs. By the time I was 16, I was, I was smoking marijuana, I was smoking cigarettes, smoking hash, doing mushrooms, doing acid. I even got to the point where I was smoking coke, snorting coke, and doing crack. Definitely drinking, taking off from home, running away. Oh, I just wasn't living a good life. And by the time I was 16, I was pregnant. You know, I didn't care about life. I didn't believe in suicide because of the teachings I got, but it's like I was trying to kill myself without tying a noose around my neck or slitting my wrists. I hated my life. And I just wanted to escape all of that. And I didn't tell anybody. And even when I told my mom, I remember telling my mom and she didn't believe me. She was like, no, he wouldn't do that. And so I never told anybody again. And I remember being little when I told her. I remember being really young when I told her and she didn't believe me and it hurt. I told her again as I was an adult and she believed me and I felt so much better. But yeah, so by the time I was 16, I had this little baby and growing inside of me and I didn't want him because I I didn't want to be a young mom and I wanted to abort and I wanted to give the baby up for adoption. But I remember when I held my baby in my arms for the first time, I looked at him and I knew this was the one male who would not use me. He would not abuse me. He would love me unconditionally. He's my angel. He saved my life. Unfortunately, a few years later, I ended up in an abusive relationship and it was hidden very well. And when we got pregnant, the abuse was even worse. Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad that I don't think any baby should have survived that. But my daughter, she's a warrior. She's a fighter. She fought to be here. Yeah, so when I got the courage to leave that relationship, I finally got out and I was living back with my grandparents, me and my children, and something horrible happened again to one of my children and I ended up calling the cops and oh, just that betrayal again because when I called the cops, my family got mad at me. Something horrible happened and I called the cops because that was the right thing to do because what happened was horrible and should not happen to anybody. But my family said I was in the wrong. They pointed the finger at me and got mad at me. And so that betrayal. And so my children and I ended up at the women's shelter. And so there we were. And you only have an X amount of days at the women's shelter. And trying to find a place in Wetaskiwin back then was really hard. As soon as they found out I was from Hobima, or which is Muscatchees, they, oh, we don't have any more vacancies. Oh, we just filled our last place. As soon as they found out I had a number from Hobima, as soon as they found out I was First Nations, like it was just so hard. And my days were coming to an end at the women's shelter. And oh, I was just getting so overwhelmed and I had nowhere to go. Where could I go after that? I could have went back to my abusive ex, but I didn't want that. I could have went to live with my dad in the States, but I just met him like the year before or so. Or yeah, I just had nowhere to go. And so I remember this one night I put my kids to bed and I started cursing at Creator. I started getting mad at him, saying, you hated me and you punished me back then. And now you're doing it again and like, don't take it out on my children, take it out on me. Don't punish my children, punish me. And I remember getting so mad at him and just swearing and fist punching the mattress and oh, just yeah, I was just so angry at him. Yeah, and finally, when I had enough. I remember this. Just I can just still see it all in my mind, and I just threw my hands in the air. And I was on my knees, and I just said, "You know what? I'm done fighting you. I give up. You win. I don't know why you hate me so much, but I'm done fighting you." And I cried myself to sleep. And the next day, I woke up, and I'll say this: I thought miracles were, you know, curing the blind, right? Bringing people back from the dead, walking on water. I thought those were miracles. But the next day, all of a sudden, I get a call back from a landlord, and he's like, "If you could come see me, I'm here." And so I go and I see the place, and he's like, "Well, there was apartment above and there was apartment below. and I had the main floor of the house, and he said, if you can keep your kids quiet, you can have it. You have to have the rent by Friday. And I was like, okay. And I leave there, and I'm like, get the rent by Friday. Wow, how am I going to do that? Earlier that year, I applied for upgrading at Norquest College, and Norquest was right across the road. And so I walk over to Norquest, and the woman, when I get to the counter, the woman hands me a check, and she says, go cash this check and bring it back. And when I did, she's like, okay, you start school on Monday. I'm just shocked. I catch a cab back to the women's shelter, and the worker there, I'm telling her, and I'm like so overwhelmed. And she's like, you got to be careful what you ask God, because He'll give it to you. The next day, she sends me to the welfare office, and I tell my caseworker that I need money to pay rent and damage, and I need to start school. And she said, we can't help you because we'll just be setting you up for failure, because yeah, there was policies and that. And before leaving her office, I ended up breaking down. I ended up telling her the truth, what happened. And she's shocked. And she takes me to her boss, and I tell her boss what happened. And her boss is shocked, and they both agree that I would qualify for the Fleeing Violence Fund. And with that, they helped me with damage, deposit rent, gave me grocery money, gave me money for my friend to pick up whatever stuff I had at my grandparents' and bring it to my new place. By Friday, I knew miracles happen. And they're as simple as that. But the best part of this is I don't even know who gave it to me. But one of my friend's moms gave me this picture, and when I was unpacking stuff and whatever, I went to go put this picture in the bathroom. And for the first time, I read this footprints prayer. And I started laughing to myself, because I knew that through all those difficult times of my life, Creator was carrying me. And I've loved Him ever since. I knew that everything that happened within those 3 days, those were my miracles. And I love God, and my faith is so strong in Creator. And it'll never cease. I'll always have strong faith in Creator.